Now, while all that goes on in Queensland, the usual political zealots are out to push their climate alarmism, of course, as they do with every flood and fire and storm and heatwave. I've shown you some of these cheap shots, the erroneous fear-mongering over the past couple of days, but here's another. It's Zali Steggall, now a teal, of course, but once a snow skiing champ, you know, spending half of her life flying around the world and riding chairlifts in one of the most carbon-intensive sports known to humankind. But it doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop her linking carbon emissions to the cyclone.
Because we know from scientists overwhelmingly around the world that all weather events are being exacerbated. Yeah. So you look at the LA fires.
CSIRO didn't say that though when it comes to cyclones.
But that might be cyclones. We know bushfires, floods, droughts. We know everything is being exacerbated. Experts talk about it in terms of climate whiplash events where you go from extremes. Yeah. And the meaning of extremes is that the impacts will be greater when they hit.
Well, it's just not right. Some scientists suggest such things might be true. They even stretch the records to suggest it could be happening, but the record simply does not demonstrate that these events are getting worse or more common. But mere facts won't stop these climate zealots as they pretend that they can control the weather.
Now, we cannot ensure our way out of the climate crisis, I can assure you that. And they will every year reassess the likelihood of events occurring and premiums will keep going up. And that is how individual families are paying for it. And I don't think that's acceptable. And so we have to mitigate that risk by reducing emissions.
Really? She pretends that, what, by paying more for our power, paying a premium for renewable energy will reduce emissions and eliminate natural disasters and pay lower insurance premiums. This stuff is just so nutty, isn't it? First, at the moment, energy costs and insurance premiums are going skywards, even though our emissions are going down. Second, no matter what we do with our emissions, the weather can't be affected because global emissions are still growing rapidly. All we're doing is making ourselves poorer because growing emissions in China, India, Indonesia and others are more than making up for any of our cuts. And third, no matter your politics, you cannot escape the science, which tells us two things. Firstly, that we can't control the weather and never will be able to. And secondly, that we've always faced natural disasters and we always will. So Zali Steggall and the other teals and their mates, the Greens, really ought to pull their heads in lest people wake up to just how desperate they are. I mean, would Steggall really have such a big carbon footprint herself if she thought it was causing cyclones? The idiocy of this almost hurts, but the insensitivity of going on about it while people are worried about their homes and their families, well, that's really low-grade stuff.